morning, good afternoon, and good evening to the listeners of the Good Anime Palette Podcast. Welcome back, welcome all. We are on episode 66 of the GAP. If you hear there's going to be some inconsistencies in audio quality or occasional banging on the windows, it's because Hong Kong has been hit with a Category 10 typhoon. For all the U.S. listeners, it's I guess like a super hurricane of sorts. I don't actually know the conversion rates in terms of typhoons and hurricanes. Let's just say the weather is shit. It always seems to be that whenever I introduce episodes, it always rains. And also, of course, whenever I do record the intro, it always has Jason. Unfortunately, this time not sitting side by side by me, but sitting about maybe 5 minutes away in his apartment. How are you doing over there, buddy?
We need to blame Saola. That's who we need to blame, really.
It's not just Saola, actually. There's Saola, there's Haikoi, there's a third typhoon as well that's on its way, but that one gets kind of like weakened by the time it hits, I think, the Philippines or Taiwan. So we have the main Saola, that's the main blame, but there's also other ones there at play that are kind of ruining the vibes in Hong Kong.
First Typhoon 10 since 2018. And
yeah, that one was Typhoon Mangkut. That one was actually really
dude,
bad.
That was
I was there for that one.
That was so bad. Like, I'm not saying that this Typhoon 10 is like, oh, it's a pussy Typhoon 10, because I do think it's kind of a lot of the more rural Hong Kong areas really do get a lot of floods and stuff like that. So it ain't no joke, even if, let's say,
it's the coastal areas that get really, really fucked, right? I think there was like parts of like northern Hong Kong, which is right along the China Sea, where the towns are flooded. It's real bad over there. We're fortunate that our area is relatively flood free, but occasional heavy rain and loud wind bang on the windows. Those are the things that we deal with. So we're blessed. The vibes are okay over here, but
it was
overall,
so quiet yesterday, like last night in the middle of the night, and that's when
we were
out
of the storm yesterday.
Yeah, that's when it's scary to me, like when it's dead silent. But
yeah. So yeah, I mean, if you're in Hong Kong, of course, this is going to be coming out, a few days after the recording, which means hopefully the typhoon has gone by already. But to all those who have been affected, hopefully you all stay safe. You'll all be fine. I think there's actually a couple of other hurricanes happening around the world too. So all listeners of GAP and your loved ones and your brethren and all that, stay safe.
Stay safe, yeah. And we got to do what we got to do, which is deliver you the best in anime and manga. So essentially, minus the maybe stuttering audio issues or whatnot, we won't know until we try our best to fix it at post. We are here to talk about weeb shit, basically, aren't we?
Not necessarily weeb shit, but a corporation within weeb shit.
Yeah, true. Okay. Yeah, so we are deciding to forego the news as well as the reading watching section and to go knee deep, balls deep, if you will, into our main discussion topic, which this time around is a studio analysis. We haven't done a lot of those lately, especially because we're still trying to figure things out. But this time around, we got a lot to talk about, and we are focusing on CloverWorks. Studio CloverWorks.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to consistently do studio analyses just because at some point we're going to be running out of studios to talk about. But at the same time, given the sort of clout and work that this particular studio has picked up, I think it'd be remiss of us to have a chat about it. So yeah, the studio of focus, if you haven't seen the title of this episode, is CloverWorks. So CloverWorks has been real busy, real hot the presses with a bunch of works over the last couple of years. Most recently, a co-production with studio for Spy Family or SpyX Family, however you decide to romanize it. But of course, it's not just a studio that just does SpyX Family. They also have worked on a bunch of other stuff before, and believe it or not, whilst you might have seen the name CloverWorks around for a while, its history is actually relatively short. Simply because the fact that there was an existing subsidiary of another studio that existed beforehand. So CloverWorks is actually only 5 years old. So what we're going to do is basically go over the recent history, the foundations of CloverWorks, what happened beforehand, before they got incepted, and what they're doing now and potentially doing in the future, as well as giving our 2 cents in terms of how we feel about the studio, how we feel about the direction that the teams are going into, and also just talking about some good old anime. We've watched a bunch of stuff from CloverWorks. I think it's actually kind of an even split in terms of like half of the stuff Jason's watched, half of the other stuff I've watched. So we should be able to get a pretty good comprehensive overview of the productions that come from the studio.
Yeah, and I do think something that CloverWorks is, in the topic of discussion at least, is some of its kind of unique, whether it is called business decisions or rebranding and stuff like that, co-production and things like that are kind of topics of discussion that I think we can kind of at least highlight a bit. Maybe we can go a bit into it, but mainly it is focused on CloverWorks' anime catalog. So, Will, do you want me to go into its history a bit, or do you want to do the honors?
Well, let's just spend 5-10 minutes talking about the general backstory of CloverWorks. Where it originally came from. When they got founded, where they're based, and I guess some other background accounting bullshit that we need to talk about for any studio, really.
Yeah, okay, no problem. So CloverWorks Incorporated. So that's one of the things we always call Studio CloverWorks or CloverWorks, but they're technically called CloverWorks Incorporated. It was originally named Koenji Studios, which was a subsidiary of Sony Music Entertainment, and also which is part of one of the biggest anime production firms, Aniplex. When you watch a lot of shows, you probably have seen that logo, Aniplex. And obviously the parent company, as we said, with Sony Music Entertainment is the Sony Group Corporation. What I found that was pretty interesting was, obviously, Sony owns Funimation / Crunchyroll, basically Crunchyroll now. So there is this kind of melding, merging, co-opting, rebranding thing that is quite unique within CloverWorks. So Koenji is basically, what I Googled was a district of Tokyo in the Suginami ward, which is west of Shinjuku, which is kind of well known to be kind of a lot of old temples are in that district. And CloverWorks then was rebranded, founded on October 1st, 2018. However, one thing that I found was pretty interesting was they announced that they would rebrand themselves from A1 Pictures, Koenji Studios, as CloverWorks on April 1st, 2018. So April Fools. So I don't know if you think at the time, or I thought...
No, it's because April 1st is A1.
Holy fuck.
That's why it was announced that day.
Oh my god, I just put that together. Holy shit. Well, my ignorance aside, it was...
I don't know. I'm also just speculating. I have no fucking clue. But, I mean, it's too coincidental.
Dude, that sounds... actually is like the perfect marketing branding type thing. So, CloverWorks technically now is not part of Koenji Studios, and they have a unique brand identity, which is different than, let's say, Asagaya Studio, which is kind of basically a subsidiary of A1 Pictures. So it's kind of like separate, but not really. Also, is good to know that CloverWorks is still a subsidiary of Aniplex, even though they kind of have their own unique brand identity. Their studio is based in Suginami, Tokyo, which is the same place as Koenji Studios, because it's just a rebranding. Their total equity is 100 million yen. And as of...
which is, that's not really a whole lot of money.
Yep. And as of February 2023, the number of employees headcount is 153. So during this time, when it changed from A1 Pictures to CloverWorks after the rebranding, there were 4 shows that were essentially kind of in limbo or had to change credits, which was Slow Start, Darling in the Franxx, Persona 5 the animation, and Ace Attorney Season 2. For Slow Start, the credits were changed after the original run, and Darling in the Franxx changed midway, which I thought was also pretty interesting as well. So other than that, that is just basically the brief regurgitation of the history of CloverWorks. So now that the past is out of the way, let's talk about the present.
Well, before we go into that, like what you'll notice as well in terms of the total equity, that's a number that actually kind of just is the same across the board with other studios too, especially if they're subsidiaries within a bigger corporation. So total equity in this sense really doesn't mean a whole lot, especially when you try and factor in the amount of employees they have at 153 people. 100 million yen is really not a whole lot of money to be running a business, and that's essentially what people sort of maybe may or may not know in terms of what equity really means here, because equity in itself is like encompasses certain things that fall within the ownership of assets. But however, in this sense, it's not just that CloverWorks wholly owns any assets. That also comes with liabilities too. So assets in this sense would come into like rent, building infrastructure, equipment, especially when it comes to actually making anime, because you need a fuck ton of equipment for that. But those things are also like, were they fully bought out by CloverWorks? Were these loaned or rented out from A1 or from Aniplex, or were they basically a down payment and that they'd be paid back over time? So that's essentially if you're looking into purely accounting numbers, equity in this sense is assets without the liabilities. So it's hard to really gauge how much money CloverWorks actually makes, because most studios don't really post their revenues, and even then revenue doesn't mean profitability. So I had to throw that out there just in case, because people might think that these are studios, especially when you start putting out numbers in terms of like how much money they have, especially when it comes to equity, that doesn't actually represent a whole lot of shit. So whoever put that up there on Wikipedia, I guess thank you, but it really doesn't offer a whole lot of information in CloverWorks.
Right. I also think another thing that was pretty interesting is usually when you hear a lot of people kind of branching off and doing their own animation studio or founding their own animation studio, is that they might imply that a certain working relationship or professional relationship was either soured or has altered. But in CloverWorks' case, it still remains a subsidiary of Aniplex. So that implies, at least to me, because obviously I don't know any CloverWorks employees, we never interviewed any of them, it implies that at least this kind of rebranding was at least on face value, not one of hostility or sourness from working together. They still work together intricately.
It's purely a business decision by Aniplex.
Exactly.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
Like in the end, it's like there probably will be some like sourness and some bad taste, because people like whenever there's a restructuring or whenever there is like a hostile takeover of any company, there's always going to be somebody that gets left out. It doesn't seem like CloverWorks has a whole lot in the news in terms of discontent and whatnot, but I mean, like you can
never
say,
know.
oh yeah, no,
Japanese
things are fine,
people
but
rarely
but
speak
really,
out, right?
This is just Jason. Let me finish. This is just purely a business decision that was done.
Sorry,
by
my
Aniplex.
bad.
That's it.
Yeah, apologies, because we're not face to face. It's hard to sometimes gauge when I interrupt or interject Will. So my bad on that.
Well, yeah, of course. If I'm still speaking,
well.
then you start speaking, then of course you're interrupting me.
My bad. Sorry. All right, so let me ask you, Will, what does kind of CloverWorks mean to you as an anime viewer? Kind of like your take on the situation with this studio.
I mean, they're a good studio, but it's also worth noting that in terms of how good of a studio they really are, we're only looking at a really small sample size, especially since they've only been incorporated since 2018. Yet it still feels like CloverWorks has been around for forever. I guess that just serves how short-term our memory is. But I think in terms of like the stuff that I like and I remember from CloverWorks, most of them have only really existed in the last 3 years. Like in the early years of CloverWorks, including the time before they did the rebrand, not a whole lot. This is not to say that I don't care about CloverWorks. It's just in the end, like it's such a short span of history for such a for a studio that has its name plastered on some of the biggest properties at the moment. On one hand, I like the work they do, but on the other, it's hard for me to really put it up against the big names in the anime industry. Like your Kyoto Animations, your Mappas, to an extent, like your Sunrises and your Madhouses, just because they're such a young studio.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really do think, though, a lot of the catalog that CloverWorks has produced at least has caught my attention for sure. I really do think that a lot of their shows are like some of my most recent like nines, I guess, right? But obviously, every studio, every production always has its flaws, and of course, CloverWorks has those as well, which we will get into. But for me personally, I think CloverWorks, their style with some of their properties are quite unique in terms of using a lot of color, beautiful animation. Yes, that sounds very much like studios like KyoAni and whatnot. But to me, there is a lot more of, when I think of things like Horimiya, even Wonder Egg, Promised Neverland, Dress Up Darling, Akebi, Sailor Uniform, like these shows are very much ingrained into me of just how vibrant and saturated the color is, along with obviously very beautiful animation. So I always look forward to CloverWorks, and their production at least has always been very good, in my opinion. So the writing,
you
though,
also did say they've dropped a bunch of eggs. I don't know if they're always good.
Well, yeah. I mean, there are some I didn't mention either, right? So
yeah,
I also think
you can't be throwing out superlatives.
Yeah.
You've already been bashing them from the beginning.
That's fair. That's fair. I mean, but I do like the studio a lot, and when I hear that name, it definitely will get my attention, even if I don't know what they are adapting or creating, for sure. And I can always expect it to be mostly pretty. That's what I would say, at least.
The other thing you can expect from them as well is that they're always going to be super busy. And this is probably why, like, even though like we mentioned that they have a really, really short existence in terms of being an anime studio, they just seem to always be in the headlines, whether it's new updates on Anime News Network or if there's a trailer that's been released and whatnot. And it's because the fact that their release schedule is pretty insane, especially when they have 150 members. Well, this is as of February earlier this year, so they could have more people. Who knows? But I think when we did our retrospective of the previous anime year, that CloverWorks was pretty much at the top of the list when it comes to consistently producing stuff every season, if not every other season. And even within those seasons, they might have multi-productions, so they might be working on 2 or 3 things at the same time at any given moment.
Yeah, I kind of went through their catalog and noticed, at least recently, their winter seasons, specifically winter 2021 and 2022, had 3 airing animes, with fall 2018 having 4. So, I mean, you could say that production pipelines and everything could have been done at different times, but they are a busy studio, as Will mentioned. So they definitely make an impact and splash every once in a while. So I think their impact is very much recently in the zeitgeist, for sure, like past couple of years since their inception.
Yep. Now, of course, given the fact that they work on so many products every anime season, it'd be naive of us to think that they're just working hard all the time and they're just pumping out works. They're really dedicated to the job. That's not always the case. In terms of studios doing co-productions, CloverWorks is actually quite high up on the list in terms of the amount of series they've worked on for with a studio that's working in tandem with them as part of a co-production team. Most recently, Spy X Family, that one was a massive co-production between CloverWorks and Wit Studio, but that's not the only one that they've worked on in a co-production capacity. Is that right, Jason?
Yeah, so they also did Fairy Tail, which is essentially season 9 or the final season, which is co-produced with A1 Pictures and Studio Bridge, but probably their also infamously or famously known for co-producing with Studio Trigger for Darling in the Franxx. And I mean, obviously, I am sure everyone can find examples of studios collaborating, co-producing productions since, way back, even before Darling in the Franxx. But I think Darling in the Franxx was one of the first examples that I can kind of remember in recent memory where I was like, it's co-produced? Like, that doesn't... Wait, you can do that? I mean, obviously you can, but I just remembered that Darling in the Franxx, it just was one of the first clear examples of two relatively well-known studios collaborating. So I don't take that as you will.
That's the thing, right? Like, when you say it's two studios collaborating, was it really two studios collaborating?
I mean...
Because in the end, remember that it was actually a studio change, right? It was still technically under A1, like through CloverWorks, but then afterwards when they branched off, is it really a co-production? It's a real sort of like gray area kind of thing, right? Because yes, if we're talking about it now, then yes, like you see a A1 and a CloverWorks working together, then sure, you could say that it would be a co-production. But given the fact that at least in the early years, it was still separating itself as a independent identity from A1, and then only for the credits to change during production, it's hard to really see how much co-producing there really was. But this is all stuff that we got off Wikipedia, and now I'm just rambling based on what my observation is. So for all intents and purposes, we'll just count it as a co-production.
Well, yeah, I mean, one of the things about co-producing is who knows if it's 50-50 or how the responsibilities are split, right? I'm sure you can find speculations or interviews where they clarify that point. But I understand Will's point of, well, Studio Trigger with Darling in the Franxx, that was when CloverWorks was basically rebranding and founded. Then Fairy Tail is still technically co-produced with A1 Pictures. So I would agree with your assessment that Spy X Family, which is co-produced with Wit Studios, kind of like for realsies, you know what I mean? So
like that one seems to be the most clear cut.
Definitely.
Yeah, that one is like legitimately it came out like 3-4 years after they became independent. I would say that despite having the same business umbrella, that this is purely a co-production with a solely like run independent studio of CloverWorks. In terms of the productions, in terms of like the creativity side, not the business side. But yeah, I mean, the other thing as well is. We can go on about this on a BP or even like a analysis of the scene itself as well. But when you have 2 studios or even 3 studios on there, you're also not factoring in potentially other sort of like independent studios or third party studios that have been brought in, like outsourced workers that are working on like in between animations or key animations. So again, are they really the only ones who co-produced it, or are there other ones that just didn't get credited or like are much lower down on the credit list? Who knows? But we don't want to get super pedantic. Let's just say that for a while, if you ever see co-productions and CloverWorks is on there, then best believe that it should be pretty decent work, and they're putting their main team on the main job. So. The other thing about CloverWorks as well, which I think Jason's kind of identified as well, is they're not necessarily a studio that only works on like one specific thing. They do kind of dabble into working on co-productions, working on long-standing series, especially when you're factoring in Fairy Tail. But the other thing that they've also dabbled into are anime originals, which some have hit and some haven't really hit. I mean, what are your thoughts on the originals that CloverWorks has put out, Jason?
So, of CloverWorks' or anime originals, I think, in my opinion, they mostly have not fared very well. The 4 examples that I can kind of throw out there is obviously Darling in the Franxx. Now, you could say that it's technically co-produced with Studio Trigger. Who knows where the split is in terms of writing and all that stuff? Fine. I'll leave that to you, listeners. But Tokyo 24th Ward, Wonder Egg Priority, and, of course, infamous Promised Neverland Season 2 are technically all anime originals, with Season 2 being based on the manga, but Season 2 is an anime original. And I have to say, minus maybe Wonder Egg Priority Season 1, so not the finale, they've all been not great.
Yeah, I think we need to clarify, though, that Promised Neverland Season 2 is not actually an anime original. It has an original story, but that doesn't make it an anime original.
Oh yeah, sorry. That is fair. That is fair. It's like anime original content, I guess.
Because then that means that anything that's a filler is technically like an anime original, which is not the case.
True. Then in that case, like fully fledged IPs would be Wonder Egg Priority and Tokyo 24th Ward. Now, Will and I both really like Wonder Egg Priority a lot.
Let's be specific here. The original main series.
Yes.
But when it comes to the finale, on the other hand, oof.
I mean, the most generous, most charitable thing I can say about the finale is there were some good moments, I suppose, and it was nice to see the gang back together, but man, holy shit.
Yeah. I think like the thing that I can say in defense of Wonder Egg Priority and CloverWorks is, and again, this is also, the product of their own downfall too. They're just overworked, dude. Like when you think about how many productions they have per year, sometimes even per season, right? They're consistently churning out anywhere from 3 to 5 products every single year. Some seasons have 2, maybe even 3 things that are running at the same time, whether or not it is a solo production or a co-production. And I think what happened then is, given the fact that, yes, they do have, over 150 employees at the company, that doesn't mean that all 150 employees are going to be able to work to the max and be able to consistently churn out good products. And so what I think happened was, with the main cur of Wonder Egg Priority coming out, they just kind of ran out of time, and with the hype that was building around the series, because Jason and I both agree, it is a really, really good first cur. But then when you have a lot of people clamoring about it, when the Atmosphere is basically saying this is like the next greatest anime original, you got to deliver. And I think that, whether it came down to not having enough staff working on the production, the writers just kind of running out of ideas in terms of how to end the series, those things don't get helped with the lack of resources and the lack of time being the most important resource here, actually.
Yeah. And let's see, 2022 they had 7 productions.
So like right after Wonder Egg, they also then released Shadow's House, and after that they had Tokyo 24th Ward, My Dress Up Darling, Akebi Sailor Uniform, and then the big girl here, Spy X Family, followed by In the Heart of Kunoichi Tsubaki, Season 2 of Shadow's House, Bocchi the Rock. Like the list goes on, right? Like they're constantly working on stuff. So then you really have to think about how much manpower or woman power they can actually divide within the studio to be able to dedicate to actually finishing off Wonder Egg Priority, considering that all the stuff that we listed there just now, like Akebi, Dress Up Darling, and all that, Spy X Family, those are all existing properties, and those are the ones that unfortunately make you more money, because it's kind of hard to make money with anime originals.
Yeah, and I think Wonder Egg Priority, in terms of how it all went down, was very unfortunate. I guess we could kind of dig around to figure out the true kind of culprit in all this, but usually it's a culmination of different factors. But whenever it is not an original work and it's usually adapted, it is fairly safe to say that the general quality and the reception has been rather positive. You can say that partially has been done through the IP that it's adapted from, but generally I would say it's more hits than misses. And
And to sort of further the point in terms of the quality between anime originals and productions of existing properties, it's not to say that that you're always bound to have like bad quality shit when you're doing a co-production or when you're doing an anime original. It's just the fact that there are a lot more like business owners, there's a lot more like investors, people who are actually involved in this production cycle, Whereas if you're working on an anime original, it's a solely owned IP. You call the shots. But at the same time, you're also at the whim of a production studio being like, hey, why aren't you dedicating enough people working on our stuff? We're ones actually giving you money here. And so therefore, the value of the IP that exists for existing products will unfortunately outweigh the originals they're working on. So I think that's just basically it. Like when it comes to the productions they've worked on for existing properties, yeah, generally they do rather well. And so I think when it comes to like the sort of list of things that were clear duds within CloverWorks' catalog, especially when you're talking about Tokyo 24th Ward, because that was an original, but that one sucked. It was nothing like CloverWorks, nothing like Wonder Egg Priority. It just was not good from beginning to end. Darling in the Franxx, I think it still gets memed on. There's still, of course, like a hardcore group of people that would vouch for Darling in the Franxx, but I think it's more sort of like in the zeitgeist of meme culture as opposed to anime culture. But there's still a space for it to exist in anime. Promised Neverland season 2, that one was just a crock of shit. Considering that they really could. This is something that I kind of want to discuss with you more later on in one of our upcoming episodes. It's just pressure, right? Like in the end, like you want to consistently put out a good product, but when your existing property doesn't have enough manga chapters to adapt, or like if you do adapt it and you get caught up, then the only thing you really have is to hopefully get the blessings of the original manga creator and create an original story and hope it lands. And it did not for Promised Neverland 2.
Yeah, I mean, that being said, I do think that Wonder Egg Priority is extremely good. Again, clarifying, if you discount the finale movie, although it's kind of hard because it kind of ended, like season 1 ended on the biggest cliffhanger ever. So, I mean, Will, I think both of us have the opinion, I don't want to speak for you, but I have the opinion that just take the cliffhanger ending and don't watch the finale movie.
Oh, I was gonna absolutely wholeheartedly agree with you. If you just watch the original cur of Wonder Egg Priority and pretend that the finale never existed, you would be fine. I mean, yeah, nobody really likes cliffhanger endings, but you also don't want to have your hopes and dreams shattered by something that is quite clearly a subpar product. Like the credit where credit's due, Wonder Egg Priority definitely got our attention for a whole season of anime. And that's why it hurts when then we had to watch the finale and just be like, what the fuck were we doing? Why did we have to wait so long for this only to be like severely disappointed?
Yeah. The movie doesn't exist. It does, but it doesn't. So, let's spend do you want to spend the rest of our time talking about the anime catalog and all of the shows?
Yeah, for sure. I think we definitely want to go over like what basically like piece by piece in terms of because you've watched a lot of stuff from CloverWorks, as have I. Before we go into that, as expected with CloverWorks, there is a lot of stuff that's on their docket when it comes to future releases. So season 2. Spy X Family is coming out in fall 2023. They also just released a movie not too long ago, so they're still really, really busy. They're also picking up Black Butler. That one is going to be coming out next year. Black Butler season 4 will be coming out in 2024.
I'll be honest,
and then a few other things
super
like
surprised.
Elusive Samurai, The Windbreaker. Jason, let me finish. So there's quite a lot of things that CloverWorks is still working on. So don't you guys worry that they're still going to be working full steam ahead on other productions.
Yeah, I was really surprised by Black Butler Season 4. And The Elusive Samurai is, I think, a Shonen Jump series, and it has received a lot of attention. I think Windbreaker, to what my knowledge is, I do have the first volume, so I might take a look at it, take a gander, as well as with Elusive Samurai and see what's it all about. But yeah, Season 4 of Black Butler, I think that's a pretty big deal, to be honest. It's only announced for 2024, so nothing else that is concrete. But Elusive Samurai, Windbreaker...
This is my take on it. It's not necessarily the most surprising, because it was originally done by A1.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, and guess what's coming out, next year with A1? Only the most hyped manhwa turned into anime, Solo Leveling. So that's probably why they're not working on Black Butler anymore.
Yeah, that's fair.
Oh, actually, no. The most important thing is because they got Hypnosis Mic Division Rap Battle Rhyme Anima Plus coming out in October 2023. That's why they're really busy with the Hypnosis Mic.
Yeah, the multimedia projects. It's gotta fly, man. It's gotta soar.
Yeah. Oh, and of course, Fate Strange Fake. Yeah. So A1 are busy with a bunch of shit themselves.
Will, what is that vampire boy band one? Visual Prison. Visual
what?
Prison.
Yeah, Visual Prison.
Dude,
that's it. Oh wow, good.
That
good,
was
good,
the
good call.
biggest. Like, dude, it's so dumb. I love it. It's so bad, but so good.
It's like you all you need really is to watch one, maybe 2 episodes, and like you're good. Not in the sense that like, oh, this is absolutely terrible, I'm leaving it alone. It's more the, yeah, this is terrible, but like those 40 minutes that I spent watching 2 episodes of Visual Prism, yeah, no, I'm not giving that back. I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. I just didn't want to spend more time watching anymore.
As right, you probably shouldn't spend more time on it past like episode 2. Yeah, exactly. So let's go into some of CloverWorks' most prominent or not so prominent IPs and anime productions, starting with Slow Start. So Slow Start was credited after its original run, but we're still going to count it. And I watched Slow Start based on the 4-panel manga by Yuiko Tokumi. The storyline is just basically you like schoolgirl slice of life that are mixed in with some sort of comedy, you got Slow Start. I watched it a while back, actually, and I thought it was an okay 7.
How long back did you watch it? Because I remember when we were watching that season where like it was Slow Loop, Akebi Suit Uniform, and My Dress Up Darling. That season, I think that was January 2022, so that would have been winter of last year. No, winter of last year. And then I mentioned I was looking on like the catalog. Oh, there's a Slow Loop thing, and I think either you had started watching it then, or you might have started watching it before then.
Let me verify when I watched it, but I did binge it in its entirety. Let's see, history.
Yeah, I was surprised that you were watching it, but then again, it was also because of the fact that that particular season of anime was really just droll. There wasn't a whole lot of shit going on. We did a whole analysis, I guess like a review of that particular season. We were like in agreement that yeah, there wasn't a whole lot of shining lights for that particular anime season.
Oh,
and that might be why you decided to pick up Slow Start.
March 22nd, 2022.
Yep. So that's around the time when Slow Loop and Akebi Uniform they were airing.
Yep. Slow Start. It was all right. It's all right. It's not mid, but it's close to it. I gave it a 7 out of 10. Nothing much to really say about it, really. It was a good stopgap. Slow Loop is better, technically. If you go by the slow animes.
Slow Loop is way better. What are you talking about? Fly fishing based on a seinen manga? That shit was lit. It wasn't that lit, but it was still enjoyable.
It was good.
But we'll go into some other stuff first. Like we're not here to talk about Slow Loop. We're here to talk about Slow Start. So yeah, this anime came out quite a while ago. I believe in winter 2018. But was there anything memorable or anything that is like, yo, this is like the true start of CloverWorks, or do you feel that they're still some ways away before like actually defining themselves as an independent studio of Aniplex?
Thank God we are not meeting face to face, because you'll probably punch me through the microphone, I guess. Slow Start was kind of amalgamation of, hey, it looks kind of like Azumanga Daioh, it looks kind of like Lucky Star. It was kind of like CloverWorks kind of getting their footing, the start, if you will, but it wasn't the best start, if you will. It was all right. I don't think the comedy really hits. I don't think the character design is super good.
It's a slice of life comedy, right?
Yeah, I just think it's a good one of those, but it's not a great one of those. I think
Like play in the background while you're doing something else kind of series.
absolutely. I think they do have some funny moments, but to be honest, I don't remember much of it. So that, I guess, tells you enough, really.
Right. Well, we'll go from one of the
7.01 on
least
my anime
memorable
list,
series.
so.
Yeah, we'll go from one of the least memorable series of Slow Start to probably one of the most memorable, but not necessarily for anime reasons, but more sort of like lewd meme reasons. Darling in the Franxx, the original work that we mentioned, was a co-production between A1 and Trigger. So again, A1 through to CloverWorks. When was the handoff? That doesn't really matter. But this one was a full double cur. Airing just a week after Slow Start, January 13, 2018, running for about 6 months, directed by Atsushi Nishigori. Now, I personally haven't watched Darling in the Franxx, but through osmosis, I know a whole lot about it, mostly for the memes. You've watched it, though, right?
Yes, I have.
And so I guess, in terms of, a review or like the 2 cents on the series, your words will mean a whole lot more than mine, because I really don't have a lot to say other than this shit looks weird as fuck, and I don't know why anybody would get into it.
Okay, so you have to understand my love for Studio Trigger, which is extremely apparent from the get-go if you have kept up with the podcast. So when Darling in the Franxx was announced, and it looked kind of like a mech thing, so it reminded me of, hey, it's kind of like Gurren Lagann, but not really. Gurren Lagann being one of, if not the most top anime series of all time for me. So I was hot on the heels anticipating it, and I was ready to fall in love with it. So I think Little Witch Academia was around that time. I need to double check. Yeah, so it was almost a year prior, and Little Witch Academia was extremely well received by me, and I think in general by a lot of people as a 7.81 on my anime list. So I was ready to love it. And I was like, 2 curs? Fuck yeah, let's go. Then I watched it. And I don't know exactly how I feel about it to this day, because it's the biggest mixed bag and conflicted feelings probably in a long while. To this day, I still don't know what to do about it. I don't think it's a very good show, to be very honest. But there's a lot of bits and pieces, usually like the meme stuff, obviously 02 kind of being the waifu. There is technically another female character, Ichigo, that a lot of people would fawn over as well, and they kind of go head-to-head in terms of the love triangle. But man, the story does go places, I'll tell you that. And when I said it goes places, it goes galaxies. How about that?
I don't even think it's a story that people care about, right? People care about the science behind it.
Oh, yeah.
They want to see.
Do you like
botany? They want to
botany?
see the friction.
Do you like botany?
They want to see They want to see pure inertia. That's what they want. Really grab inertia by the hips and thrust with all the friction that you have to start up your mech. That's basically all people really know about Darling in the Franxx. Like we there's no sugarcoating it. Like the only reason why many people know or even like Darling in the Franxx is because of that particular aspect of the series.
I'll be honest, when I first saw the first episode where they introduced that dynamic between, I guess, the 2 co-pilots, I was very, very uncomfortable. I have seen way more, worst uncomfortable stuff technically, I guess, on the pantheon of stuff, but it just wasn't vibing with me. I was just like, I feel dirty watching this. I'd rather watch something more R-rated in nudity and sexuality, I guess, but this one was...
Yeah. So when you were watching it, though, right, like, did you ever get the feeling that this is a series, like at least from the production side, that it was like very self-aware and being like, yeah, no, this is a parody on like all mechs and those kinds of series. We're just doing it because for the lulz, or were they like, no, this is serious. This is how you power these mechs, and it's integral to the way that the story works.
I am convinced that the writers are genuine in thinking that this is a commentary, this is meta-analysis, because technically you do have evidence of that with Studio Trigger and Kill la Kill, right? But on the other,
That's true, yeah.
But on the other hand, when I watched it, my personal opinion, my gut reaction was, get the fuck out. This is embarrassing. What is this bullshit? Like, it's not even subtle. It's in your face about how the pilots interact with each other. And it's just, it really left a sour taste in literally everyone's mouth from the get-go. And then you think, they do the Gurren Lagann thing of you think the story is over, but it keeps progressing. And usually with Gurren Lagann's case or Kill la Kill's case, they really amp up the sheer absurdity and scale. Whereas I would argue that in Darling in the Franxx, they only amp up the scale, but they don't amp up everything else. So it gets...
Yeah, no, I think, as you mentioned with Kill la Kill and with Gurren Lagann, yeah, there's a lot of ridiculous, absurd shit that happens in those series, but they balance it out with good story, good character development, and let's be real, like, the action scenes in Gurren Lagann and Kill la Kill were fan-fucking-tastic, but from what you're saying with Darling in the Franxx, it seems that they kind of go like balls to the wall, high octane on one particular aspect, which is, you know, driving your pelvis into your co-pilot to be able to pilot this shit, but not really giving up a whole lot of substance for anything else.
Yes. My kind of summarizing thoughts is, at the end of the day, in my humble opinion, Darling in the Franxx is a love story through and through. The problem with any love story, unfortunately, is when you get a love... I kind of feel like, oh, if I'm the writer, I want to make a love story that spans the test of time. Okay, great.
I mean, dude, visually, there's a whole lot of loving going on in that series.
I would argue no. Even though...
You know what I mean by loving.
I know what you mean, but I would argue it actually does it a disservice. But look... It tries to be a mech part of Gurren Lagann, but it doesn't land. It tries to do absurd sexual innuendos and whatnot, similar to Kill la Kill, but not as blatant. And it doesn't tie it all together. It's like they grabbed those two properties and Little Witch Academia, threw it in a pot, stirred it up, add in like a heart or two, like not like actual heart, because they thought that that's what love is. And then out came Darling in the Franxx.
Would you consider it an edgy series?
I would say I am on the edge of appreciating it as a series worth pursuing.
It seems like they really push like certain narratives to the point where it's just like it gets a little bit excessive. It gets a bit too much for people to really like take it seriously.
Yeah, and I couldn't take it seriously.
The sound of how you're saying it, it's like you're just watching this like this trash heap of a fire and just being like, oh, someone just put it out. Like there's too much going on here right now. Y'all are out of control.
I think the writer, when it's all laid out, all 24 episodes, towards the end, I would argue, like past, I guess, the big twist. I'm not going to say what it is, but past that point, it kind of settles down into what it really is. And I think a lot of people got betrayed because when you kind of realize, in my opinion, it's a love story, then they would probably be like, oh, fuck, then what the fuck did I just waste my time watching the past, X amount of episodes, XX, if you will. And it's just a big bummer because it's such a mess, honestly, really badly.
Right. Well, two important questions. Did you finish it? And if you did, what was the score that you gave it?
7.
So you actually finished all 24 episodes, the double curve, Darling in the Franxx.
I didn't log it, if you could believe me when I say that.
But you definitely did finish it.
100%.
Right. 7 is not a bad score. I mean, to be fair, it correlates with the average rating it gets on my anime list. It's not like a absolutely like detestable, like hated series, but I think most people remember it for the wrong reasons, and so
I want to give it a 6. I want to give it a 6 if I'm being very honest. But so much of the production, the music, and everything is still really, really good. So I can't, in my mind, give it a 6. But my God. It's like you technically, it's like when you do an exam, right? Oh, you technically didn't pass. You got a 49 out of 100. You need a 50 to get a D, but I am just gonna give you a D. But we all know.
Wow, it gets a sympathy 7 from you.
Oh, 100%. In fact, the fact that it couldn't stick the landing or even close to it, despite a lot of what I think is talented people and just the fervor around Studio Trigger at that time, because CloverWorks is still kind of in its infancy. I was super betrayed to the point where at some point I was like, I'm not going to watch a single Trigger show until I know for a fact it's good.
Okay. Well, I guess that wraps up that discussion on Darling the Franxx. So moving on from sentimental studio for Jason, we now go into a sentimental gaming property for Jason. Persona 5, the animation, based on the Persona 5 video games produced by Atlus. This one released 3 months after Darling the Franxx, April 8, 2018. 26 episodes, so slightly longer than the long form of Double Cur, directed by Masashi Ishihama. Now you've mentioned that you're a pretty big fan of the Persona series. Did you play the Shin Megami Tensei games before as well?
Absolutely. I played the Shin Megami Tensei games. I played the Shin Megami Tensei : Persona series, and then it branded as the Persona series. I played 3, 4, and 5 as well.
Right, but 5 wasn't your favorite, was it? I think it was. You said it was 4 that was your favorite?
4 is by far my favorite. I would say 3 and 5, if you ask me on different days, I'll give you a different answer. But I do like Persona 5 a lot. I think it's a 9 out of 10 video game.
9 out of 10 video game, but did you watch the animation?
I didn't finish watching it. But
you at least did watch some of it, right?
Yeah. And here's the thing with the Persona 5 animation. So I love Persona 4 the most out of Persona 3, 4, and 5. I played the video games, all of them to completion. With Persona 4, I think I beat it 4 times. Then the Persona 4 Golden came out, and I beat that twice. And I think I beat Persona 3 once with, and then its remake, I think it's called FES, because they always do like an added thing afterwards,
yeah, okay, we get the point, Jason. You really, really love the Persona series.
The point is, usually with these types of video game adaptations that turn into anime, it is very much like the recent Nier show, in my opinion. Maybe it changes, but if you like Nier, play the video game. If it interests you, play the video game. Don't bother with the anime adaptation. That's it. That's really it. It's the same music. Yeah. It's the same voices. Just play the game.
But it's an RPG, right? So in terms of like the storyline, like you do have some sort of input in terms of how to guide the direction of the game. So, as you mentioned with Nier Automata that came out just several months ago, it's not that linear of a game where when you start producing it as an anime series that you're going to be covering every single plot hole, every single like ending, every single storyline. Is that the sort of general vibe I'm getting from you for Persona 5?
Persona 5, the animation, in regards to the storyline, is exactly the same as the game. Obviously, the voice cast is the same, and the music they pretty much recycled, even though it's great music. To me, though, it just doesn't hit the same. Maybe I'm very biased because I played the video games. So it is true to a certain extent that as someone who played the games, I would obviously consider the games superior. But if you can't afford the time to play over 80 hours to 100 hours for a video game, which I completely understand, but you're still into the Persona series, then, of course, Persona 5, the animation is serviceable. That's, I guess, the end of the day to me. It's serviceable. That's it.
Yeah, but I guess since you didn't finish it, you can't really give it a score, right?
Yes, that's fair. I didn't.
All right. Yep. Okay. Moving on. Okay. Now, this is probably the series that I think was one of the early defining moments of CloverWorks as a studio, Rascal does not dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, based on the light novel that was written by Hajime Kamoshida, released in October 2018, directed by Soichi Masui. One cur, 13 episodes. Now, this one is unfortunately a series, again, that I did not watch. Time has not been friendly to me recently, but I think, when we were preparing for this particular episode, asking Jason as well, in terms of like all the other stuff that CloverWorks has done, is this a particular series that I have to watch to really get into the lore of CloverWorks? And I think you kind of wholeheartedly just said, yeah, I watched the movie too.
Yes, and I think one of the things that I want to emphasize with Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai is that not only is there a sequel movie, but they also adapt the later light novels into 2 movies, one of which I think is coming out at the end of the year. So
yeah, Rascal Does Not Dream of a Sister Venturing Out. That's the one, right?
Yes, and then the other one which they have announced for December 1, 2023 is Rascal Does Not Dream of Knapsack Kid. So Sister Venturing Out should be out in Japan at least. It's June 23rd, 2023. So hey, if it's just continuing the story, I'm all for it. I can't wait for it to arrive on streaming platforms so I can watch it, basically. I won't...
But we gotta start from the beginning, and that would be Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. Or Seishun Butta... Well, no, Seishun Butta Yaro is the name of Rascal Does Not Dream. As Jason mentioned, it's a collection of light novel stories. You watched everything in completion, right? In regards to the Rascal Does Not Dream series, or mainly just the Bunny Girl Senpai stuff?
I watched the Bunny Girl Senpai and the sequel movie, and the other movies haven't been out yet on streaming platforms, so I don't have access to it. But everything that is currently released that I can get access to, I finished. So I think Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai is waifu material as well as romance stories done very well with witty dialogue. You might hear a lot about the premise, and when you just hear it on paper or someone telling you the premise, it won't make sense because it's like these oddities. It's almost like Monogatari in a way, except there is not that much violence and it's more about mental trauma. That's all I will say about it. I think it's called...
And scantily clad women.
Yes. And funny enough, I'm not saying this is a spoiler, there's not a lot of bunny girls. Okay? I'll say that.
Yeah. Despite when you actually look at Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai and like the main poster that is on my anime list being, I suppose, the main character in a bunny girl outfit. Does it only just appear like for a fraction of the series?
So, in order to explain it, I will just say this: Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai, similar to Monogatari, because they're both of them are based on light novels. They go in terms of arcs, and each arc is kind of condensed in its own story, as well as its quote-unquote oddity, or I think they call it adolescent syndrome. And the main male character has to help out all these female characters, with the first female character being Mai, who is essentially the bunny girl senpai. And
now when you mean like adolescent syndrome, do you mean in the sense like Chinibyo?
There is a girl that is afflicted with Chinibyo, yes.
Okay.
But adolescent syndrome is essentially... Okay, so there is an odd kind of science fiction-esque phenomenon that happens with people who have an adolescent syndrome that the story focuses on. With Bunny Girl Senpai, I'm just going to say it because it's just the first episode, literally in the first 10 minutes of the first episode. Mai wears a bunny girl suit and walks around the school. And unfortunately, because of her adolescent syndrome, no one can see her. Like, no one can even see her. She's invisible to everyone except the male main character, which they address why he could see her.
So, like, as opposed to like Shinibyo, this one's a bit more on like the supernatural side. Then
They all have similar kinds of supernatural elements, but the thing that I quite like about these kinds of supernatural elements is that they all tie into the trauma or the obstacle that these female characters have to overcome. With Mai being basically, she is in this world, she is a celebrity. She is like a teen idol of sorts. And she is seen by everyone, all plastered all over. I think one of the first things you see in the first episode is like her poster plastered on the side of a shopping mall with her drinking something and being like, "Hey, isn't this awesome?" Blah blah blah. But then after she finishes, all of her quote unquote work, no one else pays attention to her, or no one else seems to see her for who she is. So hence the invisibility kind of phenomenon. And
sounds like a whole lot of weird shit.
Yeah.
So why is it so damn popular then, Jason? Because on my anime list, it's got over 1.6 million members, ranked popularity 52.
I think Rascals Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai is the first anime that I would consider putting CloverWorks on the map. Of course, they made stuff in the past, but to me, this is the one that I was like, oh shit, this is an awesome show. And some of the things that I like that, unfortunately, Darling in the Franxx couldn't pull off was the romance and the banter. Because the romance and the banter is done exceedingly well in Rascals Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. And it's kind of the whole typical thing of, well, in romance, people can just talk to each other like adults, and people can talk it out instead of he guess, she guess, he says, she says, right? And mellow.
I'm also gonna have to give you the obligatory update and the edit that it's Rascal Does Not Dream, not Rascals.
Shit. Wow.
Back at it again. But do continue your analysis of. I'm sorry, but yeah, no, do go on. So it really dives deeper into the romance aspect. Again, like you mentioned, that there's a central theme of love and romance in Darling in the Franxx, but it doesn't really pull it off. So but for you, Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. That's where okay, I finally see it. Now they're getting things together, and this is working perfectly for me.
Yeah, I also think that the theme song is extremely catchy, which I think is another. Of course, you can say that about a lot of animation studios and their choice of OP and ED, but I think CloverWorks has a knack of picking very good openings and endings, and I have nothing bad to say about Bunny Girl Senpai, really. I think it's one of those shows that is very easy to recommend, and it is an easy sell. Definitely. And it holds a special part because it's kind of like the first thing that I remember in terms of CloverWorks and putting them on the map, in my opinion.
Right. So definitely watch Bunny Girl Senpai. Watch the following movie. Is it Does Not Dream of Wandering Girl, Dreaming Girl? What's the sequel?
It is Dreaming Girl.
Does Not Dream of a Dreaming Girl, followed by the sister venturing out, and then Knapsack Kid. So that would be the full timeline as of what will be released for Rascal Does Not Dream, the light novel series.
What I will say is the Dreaming Girl sequel movie. If you don't watch the other movies, because I haven't either, or read the light novels, it does tie most of the things up pretty neatly, such that if you don't watch anything more, I don't know why you wouldn't. But if that's the last thing you watch of Rascal, it's good. It's great.
All right. I think we can move swiftly past the next one, Dakaichi, which is based on a yaoi manga by Hashiko Sakurabi. This one released just one day after Rascal Does Not Dream of Bunny Girl Senpai. And I say that we move past it because I haven't watched it, and I don't think
neither have I.
Either.
Yep.
So, unfortunate for all the Takaichi fans. I think we can also move quickly past the next one, Ace Attorney Season 2, a sequel to Ace Attorney based on the game series Ace Attorney.
Did you play
I no
the game?
no I actually didn't play. I had a lot of friends that did play. I think it was because like the first games released on the DS, the Nintendo DS, unless there was one that came out on the Game Boy Advance or any of the prior systems. Maybe like a Japan exclusive, because there definitely are a lot of games that only release in Japan and not anywhere else. But I know it's insanely popular. It's not a game, really, is it? It's a visual novel.
I would say it's kind of like a visual novel, point and click adventure. Yeah. I really like the Ace Attorney trilogy. Of course, they had many other iterations after that, but this is kind of essentially there's a trilogy of it, and this is season 2, so it is the middle section. It's good.
Right. But then, I mean, again, like same thing again. If you have the game or have time to get and play the game, just play the game.
Yes, I would say so, 100%.
Okay, all right, but good game, possibly good series. Now this one is I don't think either of us really want to talk much about it, simply because neither of us have a vested interest in this particular series. We're talking about Fairy Tail. Now, this is the final season of Fairy Tail, which was produced by CloverWorks in tandem with A1 Pictures and Studio Bridge. This one then came out one day after Ace Attorney Season 2. So within a span of 3 days, you had Takaichi, Ace Attorney Season 2, and Fairy Tail. You're going to notice a running trend in terms of how much shit CloverWorks gets done. Now, Fairy Tail, for all intents and purposes, is a very, very popular shonen series, shonen action series. Action adventure? Probably action adventure. Since Jason and I have already watched a fuck ton of action adventure shonens, it's kind of hard to just go back in time and be like, you know what? Why don't we watch everything prior to the production done by CloverWorks and then give our 2 cents on the final season? I don't think either of us want to take on that mammoth task. I don't know. I could be wrong. Were you ever interested in Fairy Tail, Jason?
Nope.
That's okay. Moving on then.
Nothing against
finally.
it. Just no.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, it's just in the end, right? Like there's a certain capacity in terms of what we want to watch and how much time we can afford to watching those things. And I don't think Fairy Tail met either criteria for both of us.
Yeah. That's really it. Yeah. Let's get to the next show, which is The Promised Neverland. 12 episodes for the first cour, winter 2019, based on the shonen manga written by Kayu Shirai, who basically it published on Weekly Shonen Jump. The series has ended already, the manga series. And what is your take on The Promised Neverland? Because to me, it's like the most simplest slam dunk kind of take, which is it's really good.
Promised Neverland was really damn good. Would I'd say it's like amazing, the greatest ever? Like that's a tall order, but I thoroughly enjoyed watching it. I think that especially because it's it exists as a manga. Anybody who read the manga would know what the story's all about. But if you like that kind of real tense, suspenseful cat and mouse kind of series where you have people who are like not really sure what's going on, but kind of like are just going through the motions, but as the cracks of this facade start revealing the dark underbelly of the world they live in, and they start realizing, oh shit, we're literally lambs for the slaughter. We are just sacrificial beings, and we got to do something about it. Otherwise, we are going to die. That shit was tense as fuck, and also really fun for me. I thought that the characters were done really well in both the design as well as the voice acting. The voice acting was really, really good in that series. First season, right? And I think for anybody that talks shit about Promised Neverland and all that, I totally get you. I am not here to defend the atrocity that was season 2, but season 1 on its own, similar to how Jason was saying that if you just watched like CloverWorks, Wonder Priority and not the finale, you could be okay. You might be sort of intrigued to see what happens afterwards, and I'm sorry, but I have to tell you the old adage, the really boring cop out of just read the manga.
Yeah, also because it's finished, right?
Yeah.
The OP,
Which then means like there really shouldn't be any reason for them not to actually properly adapt the rest of Promised Neverland. But do you think that ship has sailed? Do you think there's just no chance for them to come back now after what happened with season 2?
I mean, I did not watch season 2, but just based on the reception and what you have told me alone, I think it's a pretty hard sell. It's kind of like Shield Hero in a sense of, except the fact that they have greenlit season 2 and 3, but in my opinion, after season 2, if they didn't announce a season 3 already beforehand for Shield Hero, I think they would just be like put on ice. Similarly with Promised Neverland, I don't think there will be a season 3, or at least maybe like a couple of years later.
Yep. Like, I mean, you just look at my anime list alone, right? There are just over 350 reviews on my anime list for season 2 of Promised Neverland. 215 of them which are not recommended, but you'll find it is overwhelmingly positive for season 1. So, look, if for any reason you're listening to this and you haven't watched season 1 of Promised Neverland, which I find kind of crazy because this one's even more popular than Bunny Girl Senpai at almost 1.9 million, popularity 37, with a rank of 122, based on its raw score of 8.51. Yeah, people absolutely love the shit out of Promised Neverland, and I do too. But we were also really, really burned by what the fuck happened with season 2. So yeah, I think that's about it. It's a really good series. Very suspenseful, very tense, and yeah, there are some pretty good action-oriented scenes in there too. So I don't think anybody's going to be betrayed by watching the first season. Just be clear with yourself that you're not going to go into season 2, or just mentally prepare yourself however you do it, and just be prepared to be disappointed by season 2.
Do you want to talk about season 2? Because the next 3 kind of properties chronologically. Maybe
no, but we'll go over those. I think we don't need to talk about season 2 afterwards.
Fair. I mean, it's pretty. It's pretty universal.
What else are we really going to add here other than it's garbage? We already mentioned that in the beginning, so we're just gonna move past that one. So, on from Promised Neverland, the next thing that came out later on in the year of 2019, I believe this would be fall of 2019. Fate Grand Order Absolute Wait, hold on. Let me start again. Fate Grand Order, Absolute Demonic Front Babylonia, based on the gacha game Fate Grand Order, or FGO, which is developed by Delightworks. This one ran for 21 episodes. Now, I'm not sure if you, Jason, had gotten into playing Fate Go. I did. I didn't really play all that much in the sense that I didn't put a single dime into the game. I was not trapped by the gacha fucking phenomena that people really.
I'm
really
proud of you.
Okay, I lie. I do play some gachas, just not Fate Go, because I already sunk enough money into other things. So I just could not afford to diversify my investments into Fate Grand Order. But as everybody would know by now, the Fate series is probably one of the most, if not like the most iconic series, because it always brings in fierce debate. Oh, watch orders, tier lists. Oh, this version of Saber is the best version, but what about that version? And always like, oh, but all you simpletons can shut the fuck up, because the only way to fully understand and appreciate Fate is to play the visual novel, which at the time was only in Japanese, and therefore you need to know how to read and write and understand Japanese. So of course, when Fate Go came out as a game on mobile phones, there was a lot of clamor, a lot of hype, and definitely a lot of money sunk into it. So it's only expected that the Fate Go adaptation for the anime would also kind of get the same treatment, that people would just fawn over it because you're getting to see all the characters you collected from Fate Go on the big screen. Now, I didn't watch it, and simply because the general anime fan, whether or not you really, really love Fate or are just kind of passing by and just seeing what's up with it, there's such a thing as Fate fatigue, in that how the fuck are you gonna remember like 7 different versions of saber. How the hell are you going to remember what happened in the third Holy Grail War, or the fifth one, or the fake one, or this and that? So if you did watch it and you enjoyed it, hey, power to you. I couldn't stand to get into Fate all over again, especially since I already spent enough time watching Fate, the original, followed by Unlimited Blade Works. Still haven't watched the movie trilogy yet, and then of course Fate Zero. I think that at some point, there's only so much Fate you can take unless you are a diehard Fate fan.
I mean, we are pretty hyped for Fate Strange Fake, though.
Yeah, that one should be good. Again, it's. I watched episode 0, and of course it does amp up the hype, but whether or not I will actually watch it as it airs, like on a weekly basis and then to completion, that's another thing entirely. We'll see where we go from there. But I mean, is there anything you want to add to the whole Fate Go phenomena for CloverWorks?
So first off, FGO waifu is MASH. Okay. But that aside, I was ready to watch Fate Grand Order, I'll just call it Babylonia. But as I was going to watch it, I was like, wait, right? This is the Fate series. So this means I need to make sure I watch it correctly, quote unquote. Then I Googled it, and it turns out that Babylonia is not the first thing that you quote unquote need to watch. And it turns out that you need to watch Fate Grand Order First Order, Fate Grand Order Camelot Movie 1 and Camelot Movie 2, then technically Babylonia Episode 0, then watch Babylonia. So I saw all that and I was just like,
fuck that.
Yeah.
Right, it's already enough just getting into the main Fate series, but then you start branching off to like the Apocryphas, the fake Strange Fakes, the fucking Grand Orders and whatnot. And then you also have the Decalet, Ilia Prism shit. Like it's just too much shit. Look, I'll just save everybody time. All you need to watch are Unlimited Blade Works. If you so choose to watch the original, then sure, you can watch that one as well. You can watch Heaven's Feel, Fate Zero, and then end with Emiya, the cooking slice of life. That's all you need to watch.
But if you want to get on Will and my extremely good side, you should watch The Garden of Sinners as well, because it's kind of like an offshoot.
And also play Tsukihime.
Yeah, that too. Sure.
Just all the original shit,
and
right?
Yeah.
Don't come at us with all these other fates and whatnot.
Yeah, and then advocate for the Tsukihime anime that they have to do eventually. I'm convinced.
Which
so
they'll probably
convinced.
never do, honestly, because UFO Table is too damn busy with Demon Slayer, and by the time they're done with it, it's just been so long.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Next on their
Moving
list,
on, then.
have you heard of this show? Autoboy Carl from Mobile Land. It's an original work, but apparently
it's a kids project, a multimedia kids project that was done by Aniplex and Sony Music Entertainment Japan. Ran for 104 episodes. But I don't think it's like full length episodes. I think it's like those like short 3 to 5 minute snippets. Especially since this is like a kids project, I don't think that they would have expected children to have that long of an attention span to watch something that will go for 104 episodes. Though I guess One Piece fans will have something to say about that. I don't know shit about Autoboy Carl from Mobile Land, so should we just move past that one?
Yeah. Let's move on to the next one. The Millionaire Detective Balance: Unlimited, based on the novel written by Yasutaka Tsutsui, right? Tsutsui, yeah.
Good enough.
I'll make do. Released on April 9th, 2020, so essentially spring, and went for 11 episodes, but it ended its run on September 24th, 2020, so I assume it was either a split or they had delays. So, other than that, though, I didn't watch it, but Will did. What do you think of the show?
Yeah, so just like, a little more sort of background information. This novel series is quite old. It's been around for quite a long time, and there actually was a live action adaptation of it before. It actually ran for 2 seasons, airing from 2006. So I guess this is more of like the animated modern take on the Millionaire Detective. When watching it, I enjoyed it in the sense that like I thought that some of the comedic gags were pretty good. The characterization was done well. But overall, I thought that the story itself was kind of just bland. They didn't really offer as much in terms of like it's basically like as you would expect from the title itself. It's a detective who has an unlimited wealth of resources to be able to do whatever the hell they want. Like imagine this is just basically Tony Stark and Iron Man, right? But without shooting rockets out of your fists and having sex with your secretary. That's not what the series is about. But I thought it was kind of interesting. I definitely liked how they introduced the characters and how the series developed over time, but I still felt a little bit like wanting more from watching it. And I guess the score. I think I gave it a. Well, actually, I ended up giving it an 8. Really, I don't know. Maybe I was being a little bit too nice then. It really should have just been a 7. But yeah, 7.53. Decently popular, 519 with 413,000 members. So there's definitely like a space within my anime list for people to actually be like, yeah, no, like I want to share how much I like the series. I think generally though, especially like watching it now, it's the same with Jason saying watching Slow Start. If you like that kind of stuff, great, but like don't push yourself to rush to the series and be overwhelmingly like wowed by it.
So I saw the first episode of it, and I think I remember 3 things about the show based on the first episode. The first one was there, I guess, was a highway chase scene, and the
The
buddy
bridge.
cop, yes, and because he's a millionaire detective, what this guy chose to do was essentially cause a bunch of vehicular damage, and then his excuse is, "Oh yeah, I'll just pay all of them later." So I was just like, "Oh, okay, is okay, I get it, okay." Then the second thing was essentially the partner, right? Because essentially the partner is like from the police, and he is babysitting the millionaire detective, who's kind of a loose cannon because he can pay for everything. So, and he just wants to solve crimes, I guess. And I just thought that I guess it's a fun dynamic, but I do remember that dynamic duo type of trope. And I guess the last thing I will say is there's a mechanic, I think, who is a female, and I think she's MVP. I can already see it. She's MVP. I don't know if she ends up being like a very favorite character for a lot of people, but to me, she's like super down to be MVP.
Yeah, no, she's
of
not.
that show. She's not? Shit.
No, I don't know
Damn.
why you're trying to praise her. Like I appreciate you're trying to find like a gem within this series. There's nothing. It's a flat 7. It's very run of the mill, and the characters don't really develop that much further after seeing their shtick from episode 1. So I appreciate you're trying to simp for the mechanic, but that's not gonna fly.
Sure.
Yeah. What you can simp for is Horimiya, which came out shortly after. No, not even shortly after. Almost a whole year after Millionaire Detective Balance Unlimited. This one came out in winter 2021, based on a romantic comedy manga series written by Hiro. Now I'm just gonna shut the fuck up because I'm just gonna give Jason 5 hours to talk about how much he loves Horimiya.
It's a good show. Watch it.
Done. Okay, cool. Wonder Egg Priority. We spent about 5-10 minutes kind of just talking shit about the finale, but why don't we, just get CloverWorks back into the good graces of our hearts and actually say some nice things about Wonder Egg Priority.
Okay. I think Wonder Egg Priority is an extremely ambitious show. Now, you can say that about literally so many of original IPs or, like very...
No. I think when you say it's ambitious, no, like you are like 1,000% correct. This is probably the most wackiest out there concept for an original series, and like, okay, maybe in the first couple of episodes we're still like, what the fuck's going on? But never was there a point where we're like, okay, let's stop watching. No, it's just like I gotta find out more. I gotta know more about what the fuck this egg is all about.
Yeah, whether it is the intrigue and the mystery, or whether it is the female characters, or whether it is things that are implied or even outright said or spoken. I think Wonder Egg Priority is a treat to watch, and it's one of those shows that I think is just really cool in a sense of you can't really figure out what's going on, but you got enough to string you along to watch the next episode. And it kind of goes all sorts of places. And I will not shut the fuck up about Wonder Egg Priority forever. Really.
I think the main thing as well was like when we were looking at Winter 2021, we just saw like I just saw Wonder Egg. It's like, huh, interesting. It's a CloverWorks thing. It looks kind of cute. Why don't we check it out? And yeah, I'll just leave it at that because anything else I say beyond that will just be spoilers.
Yeah, that's your credit for getting us on that train.
You want to go into Wonder Egg Priority completely blind because you want to be taken on this wacky supernatural journey that unfortunately has been left wanting more from its fans. So yeah, as Jason said, if you're okay with cliffhanger endings, by all means. This is a hard recommend. You have to watch it. Hard recommend.
Wonderful OP and ED, similar to Horimiya.
Oh yeah, no, the music was great too. The music was super good. Yeah.
So next up, we have Shadow's House, which premiered in spring of 2021, based on the supernatural manga by Somato. 13 episodes. There is a season 2 that should be. Let me see. It
came out in summer, I believe, of 2022.
Yep.
So I guess like I only watched a few episodes of Shadow's House, but you were pretty like stoked to see season 2. You're like, because you could see like the ingredients in the series like being like, no, this has like the cojones to be real good, and I think that there was some delivery of it in season 2. So like, why don't we just talk about both seasons in one go? Because you've watched, I'm not sure you finished season 2, but you definitely watched a lot, way more than I have.
I think I am several episodes away from finishing season 2 at the time. It was one of those shows where it started my whole on hold saga, I guess. So I do need to finish it. It was really good. The only reason why I didn't finish it wasn't because I didn't want to. It was just I just put it off. Shadow's House is, again, one of those shows that I don't really know how to describe other than cleaning is involved. There's a lot of, like, mansions, Tim Burton-esque type of aesthetics. Mystery on top of mystery on top of mystery. And it is a very good show. Also, OP and ED is fantastic.
It is a slow burn, though, right? It's a pretty slow burn series.
Yes. It is very much... because I don't think there is a lot of very in-your-face elements, or there is no extreme kind of excitement from it. It's a layer that builds up over time, and then when you look down or look back, all of a sudden it's 100 stories up. So it is a really good show, and it does reward a lot of persistence in terms of watching more. I think it's one of those rare shows where instead of, if you're not convinced about maybe the first 2 episodes or so, I would say just keep going. Like, I would even go half of season 1, which is 13 episodes, so it's like 6 or 7. It might sound like that's a lot to invest, but it would really convince a lot of people whether or not this is a show for them or not.
Right. And like, of course, I'm going to be very cliche and lacking in originality here, but like, this is a series that's very different from all the other series, right?
Absolutely. It's very Tim Burton-esque. And if you like that sort of aesthetics, if you think kind of like Victorian era type of clothing and mannerisms, and even the soundtrack is extremely reminiscent of those era, then this is straight ecstasy for you. It's also very pretty.
Nice. Okay. Well, just like they did in winter 2021, we have a hat trick of series that came out in winter 2022. Starting off with probably the worst of the bunch, Tokyo 24th Ward. Now I'm not sure if this was because of the fact that we were still like we were pretty forgiving to the finale of Wonder Egg Priority, and just felt that, you know what, like they still did a good original work. And this one's also going to be original work. Ran for 12 episodes, directed by Naokatsu Suda. We were kind of hyped. I'd say we were definitely hyped for it because it looked interesting. It looked kind of different from the other series that they usually do, but still kind of in the similar vein of Wonder Egg Priority, not really knowing what it's about, but it looked very bombastic and colorful. And then when we watched the first episode, oh boy, there's a train in that episode, and that train never takes off from the station, just like the series itself. It was hot garbage.
I would argue the train did leave the tracks and it became a train wreck. That's what I would say. It was I don't know what.
So not even living up to expectation. It just basically like left the station and like destroyed itself en route.
I don't have anything really good to say about it, really.
I think like the thing that was really bothering me was the fact that like how heavy they laid into character tropes, especially with the three main characters all having different hair colors, and those hair colors fully representing the character tropes that exist within anime.
All right.
The redhead fiery attitude one, the blue haired fucking I'm suave and cool headed and like I don't take shit from nobody, and then the green one was just like some weird kid that nobody really gets along with.
So, listeners, let me spin you a tale of typical stereotypes. You ready? In terms of the realm of anime, you have, as Will mentioned, a trio of best bros, each with primary colors: red, blue, green. All have varying personalities that, as Will said, attributed to their personality. Where have we heard that before? Oh no, they are kind of friends but not really, but then they band together and then there's a big conspiracy and then it is supposed to be really cool. They try extra hard to make you think that they're really cool, but they're not. And that's Tokyo 24th Ward.
Right. We're going to leave that train wreck behind and go into the next two of the trio. Both of them released on the same day, January 9th of 2022, but they're not the same series, one of which is Dress Up Darling, My Dress Up Darling, based on a romantic comedy series by Shinichi Fukuda, and the other one being Akebi's Sailor Uniform, based on the Slice of Life manga by Hero. Now, I did say Hero before for Horimiya. That one is Hero. This one, Akebi's Sailor Uniform, is written by Hiro. So there is two separate mangakas for those series. Don't want to cause any confusion there. So I'll leave it up to you, Jason. Which one you want to talk about first, My Dress Up Darling or Akebi's Sailor Uniform? Both of them came out at the same time, so you hold the cards.
So let's talk about lewdness. And
which one?
Let's talk about the most obvious lewdness.
It's not that obvious, man.
So then,
it's really not that obvious.
When you factor in slice of life, right? You know, there's high school,
okay.
right?
Now we're going.
And then, you know, it's slice of life. There's comedic elements to it, and there's just people trying to show who they are. And I'm of course talking about the extremely lewd Akebi Sailor Uniform.
There we go.
Probably one of the prettiest shows, to the point it got nominated in the Crunchyroll Anime Awards. I was so...
For Best Animation in Anime, yeah.
That was really... Okay, first of all, good choice. I know it won't win, and it didn't, but okay.
But you also know that it was men of culture that picked that nomination.
My God. Such... There's actually nothing that really goes on in a KB Sailor Uniform it is Akebi and her high school friends just vibing and essentially doing. It's not suggestive, right? But it is.
Yeah,
it's definitely like lewd, I would say.
There are some very, very like light Yuri undertones here.
Oh, 100% Yuri bait. And the lewdness is essentially, think of Miru tights in the sense that there's nothing nude or like on screen, but it is extremely provocative,
extremely suggestive.
Yeah, very suggestive. But
like, what's the real storyline of Akebi's silly uniform? Right, it's just Akebi and her homies vibing until the vibes are off, and then she comes back and the vibes are back on.
Well, technically, it's Akebi trying to go to a school that her mom went to. That's a very prestigious kind of boarding school of sorts. And they have a uniform because that's all she cares about. But they change their uniform, and she's like, well, fuck that. I'm just going to get my mom's old uniform and wear that. And the school board was like, I mean, I can't say no because technically it's a school uniform. It's just phased out, but it's a school uniform, so And then she just meets interesting friends along the way, and she essentially, is so ballsy and very high school girl Japanese-esque to go to your interview for the school. So being interviewed to be enrolled in the school, and they go, so what do you like about our school? And then she goes, your uniform. Like,
well, it shows her passion, I suppose.
Yep.
But again, like, it really doesn't offer a whole lot in terms of like what the fuck this series is, right? Much in the same way of why anybody would watch like Mirror Tights. Like, you're definitely not watching it for the quote unquote plot. You're watching it for the asterisk plot. Like, there's nothing going on here other than will they, won't they? Are they going to show it or not? And if you are a dirty heathen and you should be ashamed of yourself. But at the same time, everybody else is watching it for the same thing. Akebi's uniform is fucking weird. But at the same time, it's like you can't help but feel like when you're watching the wholesome moments, you're like, yeah, no, that was sweet as shit. And then there's a camera that shows up.
I think that's episode 3, yeah.
Yeah, like, what the fuck? Like,
it's the photography club, Will.
Yeah, sure. It's definitely extracurricular activity. Yeah, or maybe, hey, look, you like swimming? Yeah, you like swimming? Why not? Yeah, let's make a whole episode about them swimming. Nothing risky or suggestive with that at all, right? Yeah,
nothing. Totally pure.
No, this is like, as much as it is very clean and sweet, it is also probably the most degenerate series that CloverWorks has done. And I'm throwing in Darling in the Franxx in that hat too, by the way.
I would agree, because I think Akebi's sailor uniform is deceptive in terms of, on face value, you'd be like, oh, it's a slice of life. It's about a girl who tries to wear uniform. It's going to be great. And then you watch it and you're like, if you're watching it with people, you kind of be like, are you guys seeing what I'm seeing? Like, it's still really good, very pretty, but
I'd rather be caught watching hentai than watching Akebi Sailor Uniform. And I mean that in the best way. Like, that's the kind of praise you got to give to Akebi, because they really pushed the limit in terms of what you can do with imagination.
Yeah, because I think it's the difference between when you see someone watching porn and they go, oh, you're such a pervert, versus you watch Akebi Sailor Uniform and they go, you sick little fuck.
Yeah, dude, get off the train. What the fuck are you doing watching that on this shit? Like, get out of here. That's the general reaction you would get from watching Akebi Sailor Uniform in public. But if you're within the confines of your safe house, of your comfy home,
your bunker,
then by all means, exactly. Yeah, you gotta really go off the grid for that shit.
Okay.
I gave it an 8 out of 10. But at the same time, do you think it's because of how droll and dross Winter 2022 was that we were just praising the shit out of a KBSA uniform? Or do you feel that, like, this deserves the attention it got?
What did I give Akebi Sailor Uniform? I think I also gave it an 8, but I really enjoyed the simplicity of it. And it's also
Yeah, don't get me wrong.
really good.
It is like it's slice of life as fuck to the point where it's almost Iyashike, right? There's nothing that really goes on, and whenever you do see Akebi doing her thing, it does feel quite healing. It actually does feel very comforting watching that shit. But then you also get that fucking pan up along the thigh and all that. Yeah, dude, like it's Mirror-Tights done like
tastefully
well, I suppose. I mean, there's also some credit due for Mirror-Tights for people who have watched it, but at the same time, it's just like if I had to choose between the two, like I would always vouch for KBC uniform because they're very it's very like Michelin star esque treatment that they give it. It's very mwah. Like they definitely crafted this to the point where they're not in your face showing straight up panties. You know.
Well, I'm glad you mentioned panties because next up is Dress Up Darling because instead of uniform, now we're talking about cosplaying. And, of course, we're talking about essentially, would you say it's the waifu of 2022 in most people's eyes?
Oh, dude, some people would just vouch for it being, waifu of all time. Like, the amount of clamor that you had for her is just, oh, God. Like, you would not hear anybody shut the fuck up about Marin.
Don't you mean Sit Snap?
I'm not simping over someone's wife.
So, Marin is essentially waifu material. I would agree with that statement. But I think Dress Up Darling also has a lot going for it. I think that...
Really? I didn't notice any plot going on. I was too busy, focusing on other things. But, like, jokes aside, no. The story for My Dress Up Darling is really good. I think it tells a very complex love story. I guess a lot of sort of, like, identity crises, some sort of like complexes that people have about themselves, and they, I would have liked for them to dive deeper into it. I think that's the interesting part. But they still do a pretty good job in terms of portraying the insecurities that certain people have within the series.
Yeah, I also really like the fact that they at least address the subject of like what you like and don't worry about what others say, or trying to overcome that kind of stigma, right? The other thing I also like about My Dress Up Darling is the realm of cosplaying, which a lot of these slice of life or rom-com shows where they use some sort of subject or hobby as its theme, they don't usually go very in-depth into it, or at least not throughout the entire cur of anime. But I think Dress Up Darling does a very good job at least getting an introduction to a lot of different facets of cosplaying that may not be readily apparent to a lot of people, even if you go to like conventions and see a lot of cosplaying. I also like the fact that I like the OP and ED. I don't know if everyone feels that way, but I like it. I really think that Season 2, which is coming out, soon, I guess they announced it for sure, is going to be something that I'm 100% looking forward to. What about you, Will?
Yeah, I liked it. I would say one sort of big problem I do have with it, though, is the amount of JB they have in it.
I'm okay.
I'm not okay with the jailbait.
It is what it is. I'm not here to advocate for it, but I get it. I get why people will be not okay with that.
Yeah, and I don't think you're saying you're okay with it either, right?
That is correct. That, okay, let me just put it out there. I am not,
because the way you're saying it, it sounds like you're kind of giving it a pass.
I am not okay with it, but
you understand why it's there.
Yes, I also understand why some people might like that. It's just not my thing, and in many other ilks of these types of shows, I would have huge problems with the show in its entirety, but I think My Dress Up Darling has a lot of other things that is going for it that, to me, it is It is not something that I'm okay with, but it is something that I'm willing to turn a blind eye towards.
Yeah.
Is it the right thing? I don't know, but it is what I am saying and what I really believe in.
Yeah. Now we move on to quite possibly the most highly acclaimed and most loved anime series done by CloverWorks, though another series that comes out later on might have something different to say about that.
Heart of Kunoichi Tsubaki, right, Will?
Yes. So that one came out of April 10, based on the comedy manga by Soichiro Yamamoto, 13 episodes. This is the same mangaka that did was it Teasing Master Takagi-san. Also, what was the other one they did? Oh, well, Ayumu. When will Ayumu make his move?
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think that when you had loads of people who really loved Teasing Master Takagi-san to the point where 3 different streaming platforms were fighting each other over airing each independent season, and then there was a movie that came out for it. I think there was also a lot of like clamor and hype for when will Yumu make his move. A bunch of other series that's Yamamoto-san did. So surely In the Heart of Kunoichi would stand amongst those 3 on the podium, right?
Don't watch it. It's shit.
Yeah, as mentioned with Teasing Master Takagi-san and Ayumu, whilst those 2 series are still ongoing in manga form, In the Heart of Kunoichi Tsubaki ended earlier this year. So it's no longer serialized. It probably is still serialized. It's just that there's going to be no new material for it. Now we're actually going to be talking about the real series here, which is Spy Family. Or FranXX Family, however you want to say it. Everybody knows it. Everybody loves it. But, Jason, do you love it?
Yeah, of course. I think FranXX Family is great. It is based on the action comedy manga by Tatsuya Endo. It is obviously co-produced with Wit Studio because you have already heard that time and time and again. It is probably one of the first Jump Plus properties, right? That was kind of...
It was one of the first few that came up, but also immediately blew the fuck up. And that's when, there were a lot more productions, a lot more manga series that started shifting from WSJ over onto the Jump Plus platform.
Yeah, I think it was FranXX Family and Kaiju number 8 that really were the 2 kind of spearheading IPs that really made Jump Plus, Manga Plus a very mainstay online manga platform. But
yeah, and then sometime afterwards, then Chainsaw Man also moved over to Jump Plus.
Mm-hmm. But let's talk about the best family of all time, at least within the realm of CloverWorks, FranXX Family. Well, I don't know what else we can add to the conversation of FranXX Family because I think probably everyone else has either heard about it or watched it.
Outside of other people thinking about this, because for sure, right? I mean, season 1 part 1 was great. Season 1 part 2 was also good. You and I have both read the manga, or at least reading the manga because it's not done yet. And also, Coat White, the movie that came out, it seemed to have done pretty well too. Has it sustained your attention throughout? Like, are you still keeping up with FranXX Family, or is it because maybe you already kind of had your fill of Spy Fam, you are already overdosed on the sweetness that Anya brings, and the fact that with this podcast that there's so much other stuff you do need to watch. Have you been able to accommodate much time in sustaining your interest in Spy Family?
No, I haven't caught up with the manga for a while now, but I will say that technically Code White is premiering in December 22nd, 2023, so technically it's not out yet for a bit of time, and I'm not even sure what's it exactly about. I don't know, but
Coat White, I think it's just like an original story, like a side arc that's not like consequential to what happens in the main series, but still very much within the lore of Spy Family.
Yeah, I really like FranXX Family. I think it's one of those shows that is very easy to recommend to people. It's very crowd-pleasing, and it is really well done. That's really all I really need to say.
Yeah. Do you feel though that the hype and the clamor that it gets is centered around specific characters in Spy Family?
Oh yeah, of course. It's Anya
Yeah,
and
because
Yor.
not so much Yor now. I think if anything, like Anya is like front and center, the main character.
Well, yeah,
I
because
mean, I love Yor. I very much love Yor, but like you had to put those two, like which one you would save? I would probably still go with Anya
oh yeah, I would save Anya 100%.
because
Peanuts.
Yor doesn't need no saving. She can take care of things herself, right?
Yeah, and Fiona Frost will always like be there. You just won't realize it. She was always
Yeah,
there.
she's always going to be playing second fiddle. She'll always be the bridesmaid, not the bride.
That's unfortunate, but that's just the way it is.
Yep. So, we've already talked about season 2 of Shadow's House. Now, as I mentioned before, with Spike's Family or Spy Family being the most hyped, highly acclaimed, most favorited anime series that CloverWorks has done in co-production with Studio, yeah, sometime later at the beginning of 2023 fall, there was a rather unassuming series. Oh no. Sorry, it was in fall of 2022, not winter of this year. Came out about actually no, almost a year ago. A rather unassuming, kind of under the radar series, Bocchi the Rock, which is based on a 4-panel manga by Aki Hamaji, aired October 9th, 2022. Now, there wasn't a whole lot that I knew about this series, and so I kind of just left it by the wayside. And then all of a sudden, I get updates on my anime list saying, oh, this is now scaling the charts and becoming one of the most highly rated series of all time. And then Jason goes and watches it, and then now he's just telling me this is everything I've been looking for in a long time. So, Jason, what the fuck is up with Bocchi the Rock?
When I look at the repertoire of CloverWorks, you get a lot of quirky shows, right? You get things that don't technically fit within the mold of what people would consider an extremely highly acclaimed show. Then you also get the crowd-pleasing shows like Spike's Family. Horimiya, I think, is generally pretty crowd-pleasing. You get obviously the quirky.
Does Bunny Girl Senpai fit in there?
I would say so as well, yeah, for sure. And I think Shadow.
I mean, 1.6 million, right?
Mm-hmm. I think Shadow's House is the more off kilter, quirky,
like the in between, right? Like it's definitely more like a dark horse, but definitely worth your time in terms of investing and watching the series.
I would also argue.
Where does Bocchi the Rock fit in all this?
Bocchi the Rock fits in none of them. But Bocchi the Rock is, in my opinion, probably my personal favorite of all of the shows that CloverWorks has produced thus far. I don't know if it would be everyone's cup of tea, but it hit all the right boxes for me that it is far and away the best thing that CloverWorks has made. Easily.
I mean, you're not the only one that's praising it. 465,000 members, popularity 459, but with an 8.83, that's enough to put it number 28 of all time for Anime List's top anime series.
And I do think that based on the 4-Koma manga is quite an interesting adaptation process because on one hand, you do have some source material, you have some idea of the general story and plot, and you could get pretty intricate in terms of plot details. But what I love about the anime adaptation of Bocchi the Rock, even without reading a single page of the manga, is the direction, because they not only parody things like K-On!, which is very much like similar vein of a bunch of girls forming a band and playing and performing. But then if you mix in all of a sudden live action footage, then all of a sudden claymation, then stop motion, and then glitchy computer graphics, and have them all be coherent to a certain extent, and then you add in the music element done very well, it is such an off-kilter show that you have to see it to really understand it, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard for me. Because I'm not interested. It's just time. That's what it is. But the fact that there's so many people that vouch for it. I think like it was above a 9 before, right, on my anime list at some point.
Yeah, it dropped throughout, but it did go over a 9 at one point. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like people are always going to be riding that wave of hype, right? So of course they're going to be smashing those 9s and 10s on my anime list, and calmer heads prevail, and now it's sitting at a still very, very high 8.83. So, there's clearly something about this series that people love about it, right? So otherwise they wouldn't be getting a movie that's going to be coming out sometime soon.
Yeah, I just think that Bocchi the Rock is very different than a lot of your typical anime shows. Even if, like, I honestly think that some people will watch it and being like, it's all right. Or like,
is it really that different from like Cute Girls Playing Music?
There's a lot of that
in terms of like those kinds of series.
I think there's definitely a lot of that, but a lot of it is also somewhat relatable to like geeks and nerds and very much anti-social behavior, but you want to do so much, especially when you are a rock band that usually gives a persona of very outward-going, charismatic person. And then you have this person, Bocchi, who literally shreds on the guitar, but has to sit in a box in order to perform. Literally, that happens at one point because she's too scared to even see the audience.
Like she's got like real bad like social anxiety, right?
Mm-hmm. And it's all played for laughs and also played for heart. It really is like wholesome in many ways, and I think the Bocchi the Rock. There's an episode called Bocchi the Rock. So it's, I think, episode 7 or 8. And it is literally one of the best episodes I saw last year. Singular episodes. It was fantastic. And I will not shut up about it, honestly. So well,
I guess you'll have to shut up about it at some point, right? Because we have to move on to the next thing.
Yeah. That's really it. I think what's left on the catalog, I mean, it's just a lot of season 2s and
right? Unite Up, which is a multimedia project from Sony Music Entertainment Japan. Neither of us know anything about it, so we're moving on from that. And then sequels and other things that are related to the previous stuff they've done, like the Horimiya Missing Pieces, Spy X Family Season 2, and then the other future stuff that's coming out, like Windbreaker, Black Butler Season 4, and so on and so on. Movie wise, I think that it's again like sequel movies for the most part. Like Rascal Doesn't Dream of a Dreaming Girl, the Fake Grand Order stuff, Dakaichi. There is one or two, maybe, like for example, there's like Seikano the movie, which is based on like the series of Seikano, How to Raise a Boring Girlfriend. But I haven't watched it, like both the movie or the original series. I don't think you've watched either as well,
yeah,
right?
but I do plan on consuming it because I think.
Well, I mean, I've put it in our gotta watch them all's the closet cleanups pick before, and it didn't get picked. Maybe I'll put it back in there at some point.
Yeah, and Her Blue
the other
Sky.
work that they did. Her Blue Sky is an original work that was directed by Tatsuyuki Nagai.
I can't find it.
Released October 11, 2019. Have you watched it?
I can't find it.
Okay.
I don't think it's available on streaming platforms, or at least I can't get access to it, so I can't.
It may just be like a Japan-only thing, honestly. And I guess there's really not much that we need to do in terms of talking about ONAs and OVAs, simply because a lot of the stuff is like, I don't know what Powerful Pro, Yakyu, Powerful Kakohen is, or Voyager with an A being an @ symbol. There's a bunch of ONAs and OVAs for the Persona 5 series, Diary of Our Days, as well as Sakura Wars. So none of the stuff that we really can cover, and most likely also because it's probably hard to access too. But hopefully, with the discussion we've had today, that we've gone over the main series of CloverWorks. We shed some light in terms of the history and the inception of CloverWorks, and really just dove deeper into the sort of the vibes of CloverWorks. As I mentioned, Is it one of my favorite studios? No, it's not. There's other series that are done by studios that like I think had better story, production, and whatnot. But it would be very, very short-sighted to me to be just dismissing CloverWorks simply because of the fact that the works they've done have been really good, and I'm positive that they're going to continue that trend. The only thing that I wish for them to do, which is probably not attainable, but it's just wishful thinking, slow down their production cycle. I think that being able to produce every season in a calendar year is fine as a business practice, but realistically, you're gonna burn out, and it's you can already see that like not every series that they pump out hits the mark every single time.
For me, I think when Horimiya first came out, I kind of said that I think CloverWorks is a studio to look out for. And I still think that to this day they are.
It wasn't Promised Neverland, because that's what it was for me.
I mean, I think Promised Neverland really was very good, but I think after Horimiya, I'm like, okay, you have enough in your repertoire that I'm convinced that you're here to stay for the long haul in terms of pantheon of, if there is ever a tier list of current studios, right? But I would say that CloverWorks is, as Will mentioned for him as well, is not one of like the top animation studios that I will put up there, but it is on the list. I'll just say that. And yeah. And anything that they
for sure,
mm-hmm.
if for sure you saw a series that was going to be like produced by CloverWorks, you'd feel pretty safe about it. I mean, yes, we've been burned a couple times, right? Like, let's not forget about fucking Tokyo 24th Ward. But generally, you would feel pretty safe if you were to see a series that was done by CloverWorks.
I will always watch a CloverWorks property. Like, if you just say, though, oh, it's done by CloverWorks, I would be very inclined to at least check it out. Obviously, not all the shows that have been made by CloverWorks will and I have either even consumed or touched. But it is a very easy sell to me if you just say, CloverWorks did it. Okay, I'm in, for the most part. Like, it was just easier to get me on board, really.
Yeah, I think that's also just coming down with like the standard of like the series of the studios that are coming out with stuff, right? Like for a while, we probably wouldn't have cared too much about OLM, but hey, now it's like you do want to take it seriously. OLM is a serious studio, and there's going to be other ones out there, like your KyoAnis or your Madhouses, and maybe not so much Madhouse now, but like your Mappas and whatnot. That if you see something coming out from that studio, like hype. You're going to be ready for it, right? Especially if it's KyoAni. But CloverWorks definitely deserves an honorable mention within that pantheon of studios we respect. Simply because of the fact that even if everything they do isn't going to be perfect, you have to admire the amount of output that they have. And as much as I say, right, like y'all got to chill in terms of pumping out so much stuff because you don't want to water down the well and have more quantity over quality. But more often than not, CloverWorks does produce a hit over a miss.
And now we have reached the end of our episode, but don't you leave because you will miss out on me talking about the housekeeping scripts that I'm going to read to you. You can always reach us through our email, gapalette@gmail.com. That's GAPALETTE, all lowercase, all one word. You can use the handle @PalaGood. That's capital P and capital G, all one word, on, I'll never say X, on Twitter. Or you can talk to us through our GAP Discord server using the invite link in the show description. We have a website, and we encourage you to go check it out, www.goodanimepalette.com, all lowercase, all one word. Music credits for this episode. Our intro music is Never or Right Now by ELFL. And because we do not have a break music, our outro music is Like the Ocean by The Big Letdown. You can always support the music artists that we feature by listening to them on Spotify, Apple Music, or other various music listening platforms. And our royalty-free music was provided by Epidemic Sound. If you're interested, you can sign up using our referral link in the show description. Terms and conditions apply.
Should probably throw in a little bit of a shout out, of course, since we didn't have the break music, but since the break music is good as hell. Mind Me, Not Gonna Wake Up instrumental, that one.
Yep.
Quite like it. Unfortunately, we can't use it today, but we will definitely be using it for the rest of this season 6.
Yep. And that wraps up CloverWorks for the time being. And I really like doing these studio dives because it's not, other than the studio, it could be a lot of different genres, a lot of different styles, because obviously different directors and whatnot. So but yeah, it's limited to the amount of studios, and obviously we don't want to just do one for studio just because we want to cover a studio, right? Sometimes it's hard to pick one.
Yeah, but I think like it made sense to talk about CloverWorks, not just down to the work they've done recently, but it's also it's a unique situation in that you have a studio that breaks off from like a main conglomerate and is now running things on from a creative perspective more independently. How much work they're able to do, who knows? We'll just have to hope that they don't burn out. And it's also good to see that they kind of rose from the ashes as well, because in the beginning, CloverWorks didn't necessarily have the best, reputation, especially with the, the talks of like Slow Start and Darling in the Franxx and all that. And I think they really turned themselves around, like when Bunny Girl Senpai, Horimiya, Wonder Egg, and Spy Family came out. So the vibes are positive now. I think that we should be happy to expect more stuff that comes out from CloverWorks. I mean, best believe they're going to be releasing at least 2 or 3 series every year. So you're never going to be too far away from a CloverWorks production.
Will, before we sign off, what, in your opinion, is the likelihood of a season 3 of Promised Neverland? You asked me, but now it's my turn to flip it on you. What do you think?
I think it's hard. I mean, as much as I want to see it, you have to think about it logistically too, because of the fact that they've listed, the recent one as Promised Neverland season 2, albeit with original material. Like, how are they going to then revamp it and bring back the original stuff like from the manga into an anime format? Like, would they do like the easiest thing and just say this is Promised Neverland season 3? Or like, are they going to have a different subtitle to it? And I don't even think that's like the main issue. I think the main issue is just the fact that so many people have been burned by Promised Neverland and the direction that the studio took, whether it was the studio itself or if it was pressure from like a production committee. The fact that they got the director to sign off on it, that should already tell you that the studio did all they could to produce something, and it was just being dealt a shitty hand. My hope is that there would be future seasons of Promised Neverland. My hopes, on the other hand, though, are quite low. I have to be like pretty upfront with that. I don't see them doing, especially if it remains a property that's going to be produced by CloverWorks, then I do not think it will see the light of day. But if like they've done with other studios where they hand over a property to another studio, there's an entire like possibility that we could see rising from the ashes Promised Neverland. But until that does happen, I think it will just be in production hell for forever.
I do think kind of the changing of the guards, if it is a co-production, I think that would be a good, easier sell to maybe a potential studio that wants to pick up the mantle. I also agree that, I mean, think about it. You have Spike's Family hot on the heels. You could argue that Horimiya, there's only so much more adaptations that can be done, although I don't know the success of Horimiya pieces over Horimiya, the parent series. But you also have the Elusive Samurai Windbreaker that is pretty hype in terms of the manga. Then you have Black Butler Season 4. Technically, you have Shadow's House and My Dress Up Darling as well, kind of in your back pocket.
Those things are still ongoing, right?
Yep.
Like, neither of the manga series are done. Like, Black Butler is still like going strong too. So it's really hard to see them picking up the cracks again for Promised Neverland. Like, I wouldn't even say like a co-production, simply because they're already doing that with Spy Family. I think that the resources are limited, right? There's only so many hands they can get on drawing stuff, and unless it's like unless they're able to just bring in like a fully outsourced team to work on it, I think the best thing that they can do with TPN, with Promised Neverland, is just give it up to someone else to do it. And even then, it carries inherently like a pretty massive risk too, because people from the outside have already seen the vitriol that the fans have shown for the current state of the series, and not even talking about the manga series, that I don't know if any studio or even another production committee will want to take on that risk.
So, in other words, Will does not dream of a Promised Neverland Season 3.
I do not dream of a Promised Neverland.
But, hey.
Yeah,
we can always be proven wrong.
What else you got?
Oh, I was just going to say we can always be proven wrong. Sorry, I was like shrugging my shoulders. My bad, you couldn't see it.
If it does, if I do get proven wrong, then great. Like I would love to see somebody take on this mammoth responsibility of revitalizing the Promised Neverland series.
I know it's not going to happen for me, but I really want a Wonder Egg Priority like remake of sorts, or like a continuation.
That one is even more.
I know.
Unlikely to happen.
I know.
I think like what you've just got to eat that shitty cake that you got, right? You got the cake, eat it too.
I'll wonder about it some more.
Yeah, I mean, they definitely had to, crack some eggs to make that fucking cake. Unfortunately, it would turn out to be a really, really terrible finale. I think we have to reiterate one more time. Do not watch the Wonder Egg Priority finale. Just watch the regular series.
Now I'm thinking about it. I'm so sad that it ended that way. It could have
been so much more.
It could have been.
It really could have been so much more, because there was so much intrigue and mystique and unknown bullshit that was happening in the original series that it deserves a good ending. But that never happens in the real world, because it's not a good business decision. There's absolutely no money to be made in trying to bring back Wonder Egg Priority.
Oh, well. I guess that wraps up episode 66. Will, any parting thoughts? Any last words?
Wow. Again, you already asked for my final words before. I don't have any more final words other than go watch some CloverWorks stuff.
Peace.